It's my phone. It has issues. I told you.
Hello, hi George.
Whoa. Are we having technical difficulties? Yes.
Charge them rent when they go. Big sandbags.
Okay, is everybody ready? Yeah.
Here.
The Village of Hainesville regular board meeting will now come to order on Tuesday, what is the date? September 24th, 2013 at 7:05 p.m. If everybody would please rise and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Linda Soto.
Present.
Trustees Dermaski.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Duberstein. Here. Barrett.
Yes.
Daly.
Here.
And Walkington.
Here.
Okay, and we have a full board, so we are in quorum. If I could please have a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustees Dermaski.
Aye.
Reese.
Aye.
Duberstein. Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, at this time, we will receive public comments. Anybody wishing to address the board should have filled out a green sheet. I have one taker so far. Any other takers? Ted Mueller, if you please come forward and address the board. You're going to have to yell, Ted, because our mic doesn't work.
Okay, can you hear me?
Is this former mayor?
This is the former
Oh,
mayor.
sorry. Ted Miller, 318 Catherine Drive in Hainesville. And I'd like to comment a little about this snow shoveling ordinance. Actually, I do approve of shoveling your sidewalks. I shovel mine, I can't say the same thing for my neighbors, but I do. But keep in mind now, Hainesville has over 10 miles of sidewalks. Consider how you intend to enforce an ordinance if you're going to have one. We have a simple ordinance as garbage cans, and we're not enforcing that. My wife Barb and I actually went shopping one day, and going in and out of the suburb, we saw 6, just on the route we took, we saw 6 garbage cans in front of the garage. If we can't enforce a simple one like garbage cans, we're going to have a heck of a time trying to enforce a snow shoveling ordinance. And the other question is, who is going to do it? You can't put this burden on our police, I'm sure of that. They have other things to do. As I said, I approve of shoveling your sidewalk as I do. But think about that seriously. You may have a bull by the tail if you pass an ordinance. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ted. Okay, that is it for public comments. We'll move on to the omnibus vote agenda.
Wait, am I supposed to speak now about the comments as well about the shoveling? Or no?
Yes, that's why I asked anybody wishing to address the board should have filled out this slip.
No,
And-
can I still speak?
I will allow you to quick grab a slip, okay?
Forgive my ignorance of the procedure.
No, that's okay. I thought I was clear, but maybe I needed to be clear.
No, I'm pretty loud.
Okay.
I actually shovel my sidewalk.
You know what, you are not loud enough. If you could speak into a mic, that would be appreciated.
Yes, very hard.
And, yes, state your name and address for the record.
Karen Horn, 115 Heritage in Hainesville. Everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect.
Okay. As far as the shoveling the sidewalks, we shovel our sidewalk. However, I do not believe that an ordinance should be passed to shovel the sidewalks. But before I get into that's why I believe, I was hoping that you guys could give me some background about why this came up again in 2012, 2013. I understand that this has been an issue for some time, but what made it come up again?
Significant snowfalls. It becomes an issue whenever there's a significant snowfall. And or the people that have chosen not to shovel at all whatsoever. The other factor sometimes is because of their proximity to a bus stop or a place where there's walkers.
So the board decided that because there was significant snowfall to bring it up again.
No, it was discussed last year, but it was,
Well, it's based on,
but we decided, we never wrapped it up.
well, yeah, but it's, the reason it became a topic is we got phone calls at the village hall and emails from both sides requesting you need to make people shovel the sidewalk. My child can't get to the bus stop. They're too young to walk in the street. They shouldn't have to walk in the street.
And has a survey been done about how many people called in for or against compared to how many residents this would affect? Like, if only 10 people called in, I don't know how many called in. Are we doing this because 10 people called in, or did a majority of the people call in from Hainesville and go, look, you know, this is what we think? Or are we doing this only because 10 people complained, or 10 people said we wanted it, or whatever reason? Are there hard numbers to back up the fact that this is an issue?
Well, one of the issues I'm going to questions to discuss tonight, because we are not, I have no draft ordinance here tonight. If I had a draft ordinance, you would have received a copy of it with the other information I supplied you.
Yeah.
There is no discussion.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get to.
And one of the discussions is, we tried to put it out at the town hall meeting to ask the question, and I think you came in at one point at the meeting and filled out a slip, okay? And we put it further out in the summer, trying to get more people to give input.
But that's the result of something.
one-
If I understand what you're telling me is you did that because something happened. I want the initial factor. I want the initial item that got this pushed into the direction that it is.
Most likely, it was a safety concern that we have for our residents, okay?
It's the board's decision.
It is the board's decision that we're going to look into this.
Okay,
I would probably
that's
say, would that be the best?
Well, and let's take it further. Any resident, such as yourself, you have a right to ask the mayor and or the board to have an item put on the agenda for discussion.
okay. So someone asked, or someone didn't ask, and the board still thought it was a good idea to go ahead and bring this up for discussion.
We received comments from both sides. Now, do we receive heavy numbers? No. And if we want to take this further down the road, depending where our discussion goes tonight, the question is, do we want to do a more formal survey that would give you the numbers that I think you're talking about?
Okay, that's one of my concerns, is that this ordinance that is being proposed has not been fully investigated as far as,
No, this is by
Should it
no
be
means
done?
a knee-jerk reaction. This is something we've been looking at for, 2 years, I'm sorry.
No, you were going first. There is no ordinance being proposed. The concept is being discussed. That's the only word.
and if I understood right, the ordinance may be proposed next meeting, the October 8th, or?
What I had told the board is we would like to close this topic in October before snow season begins. So if we're going to do a survey and or by any other means, we need to act quickly.
So
And
2 weeks.
Or a month.
Or a month.
well, I think we're getting ahead. I think this point of the meeting is for you to make your comment. Your comment and concerns are heard. When we get to the discussion, we're going to be bringing up several factors.
Well, I can leave all this for the discussion if you want. Like
So
I
you won't be
said,
staying?
No, I'll be staying.
Okay.
You know, like I said, I'm sorry for my ignorance about the procedures. I really just want to have a discussion and understand where it came from and to express my opinion on it.
Could you share your opinion now?
Yeah, yeah.
I've got a couple different ways I can go. As I said, I'm against it, but mainly it's because I think it affects only a portion of Hainesville residents and not all of Hainesville residents. Not all of Hainesville has sidewalks. So you're only affecting a portion of residents that you are requiring to shovel them. And then the other factor is some people have maybe 15 feet of sidewalk. Other people may have 45 feet of sidewalk. So again, there's a discrepancy about how much work, labor, money involved that you're subjecting a portion of Hainesville residents to. So that's a couple of my issues. My other issue is the snow plows. So I live on a corner. It's actually, I emailed you, there's a bus stop for elementary school. They must get 3 to 5 feet of snow piled on this corner, which is on a sidewalk. So would I be responsible to plow through that 3 to 5 feet when that 3 to 5 feet was not caused by snow accumulation, but was caused by the snow plows? And has there been any discussion with the, I don't know who you would talk to, maybe the school districts or the bus routes, whoever does that, about where these bus stops are? Perhaps we should stop, saying, look, if this is a bus stop here, quit putting the snow on the bus stop. And that would probably handle some of the anticipation that some families may be feeling that their child cannot get to the bus stop. It may not just be the shoveling of the sidewalks, it also has to do with the snow plows, how much snow they're piling on the sidewalks, and things like that. If the village decides to go with the snowfall and go ahead and put in an ordinance, I would suggest that it not be 24 hours. I read some of the ordinances which just said 24 hours and at least 2 inches of snowfall. I can't see the importance of shoveling something for 1 inch of snowfall. And the other thing is, with the packet that you sent me, most villages do not have ordinances. They do what Hainesville currently does, which is encourages their residents to go ahead and remove the snowfall.
Correct.
So those, I think, are my points. Can I answer any questions?
Well, one thing I would like to say at this time, and then I think the rest will come to light as we discuss things that we have some additional thoughts and ideas that I wanted to discuss with the board. Regarding the bus stops, at the beginning of the school years, we contact both school districts and ask for a list of the bus stops, which goes to our snowplow contractor and public works superintendent. And we make our best effort to clear as best as we can a section in those bus stop areas. However, when you have a major storm and or several major snowfalls in a row, you become very limited in where to put all the snow. And so it does become cumbersome. And certainly we would not expect a resident to be responsible for clearing that type of snow. I would repeat what I've always said and trying to stress as much as we can is that we encourage communication. And if a resident is having an issue with a bus stop area, and I know there's a couple that we did address, there may be some that we did, where we sent the contractor and or our public works superintendent back out. They took the Bobcat and they relocated some of the snow. Yeah. So, but I think we have an idea. I'd like to wait till we get that part of the agenda that might address some of your concerns.
Like I said, I didn't know when I was supposed to come up and address.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Did anybody have any other questions for Karen just before she? Okay. All right.
Could you have them come through my driveway since they use it for bus stops?
We'll see what we can do about
I
that.
don't even have a bus stop on my corner, and I snow blow it every time it snows.
If you leave the shovels out there, well, then the kids will do it.
That's
As they climb over, slide down.
Okay. So I think we're moving on from public comments now. Last call. Omnibus vote agenda. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Trustees Darrenowski.
Aye.
Priest.
Aye.
Huberstein. Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Waddington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yeah, for my report, first I have some sad news. Some of you may be familiar with a longtime Round Lake area resident by the name of Kim Kirby. He passed away recently, and he is the husband of Jeannie Kirby, a name you may be more familiar with. Jeannie ran in the recent Avon Township election, did not win, but however was recently appointed to township clerk after the resignation of Patty Smart. While I didn't know Kim very well at all, I've gotten to know Jeannie in recent years, and I know by reputation that they're highly regarded in the area. He was an educator for his entire career, teaching Round Lake children at the Beach and Village Elementary Schools for 40 years. He retired in 2011. He served as the president of the Teachers Union for multiple years. And he was a member of the Round Lake District 116 School Board and has volunteered for many community organizations and has been a coach, an activist. And visitation will be at Justin's Funeral Home this coming Friday evening, September 27th, from 4:30 to 7 p.m. And his family suggests memorials to Education Association of Round Lake, Kim Kirby Scholarship Fund. So if you need more information, we'll have that available, and we'll be sending our condolences on behalf of the village. And our sympathies are with Jeannie and her family. We have had discussion in the last several meetings about the Fox Lake Sanitary Sewer PowerPoint presentation, which I have yet to receive. And I have been told that it's really, really close to its completion. So our newest goal is that we would be showing it at the October 8th board meeting. So I will do a community outreach call when indeed we have firm information on that. There was a advisory committee meeting actually the day after our last Village Hall board meeting. And I was told at that meeting that the letter I talked about that the county was going to send out actually will come from us on our village letterhead. The county will provide us the letter, but since we do our own billing on the sewer and the county does not bill direct, we will be sending out the letter that again talks about this increase. So for clarification, anyone that lives in the Fox Lake Sanitary Sewer District, which would be all of Cranberry Lake townhomes and single-family homes and Union Square townhomes and the new Walgreens strip mall, they will see $1.50 per month surcharge for the sanitary sewer improvements. And that will be funded by a 15 or 20-year loan, whether it's through the IEPA or bonding. So more to come on that note. Also, a couple items of note regarding our police department. Recently met with the chief and our new commanders, and we are setting a substation in the village hall for our police department. And so the office that was occupied by our building official and the spare desk area will now be converted to a mini substation for the police department. They have worked with Kelly and our IT people to set up computer access. So they will not necessarily be in there on a daily basis. Their purpose is to patrol in our town. However, if an incident occurs, so for example, a multiple car accident where you may have 5 or 6 individuals that are injured, but there needs to be reports taken, instead of traveling to the Grays Lake PD, they would come in here and meet here. Some of the concern for doing this is that we have construction going on, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. because don't forget, next year, we will have Washington closed going east instead of west. And so that will make it more complicated for the squad car to get in and out, and we don't really want that squad car leaving the village any more than necessary. So that's the purpose of our substation being set up. And then another item that we're pursuing, and we'll have more information on, is the Village of Grayslake recently started doing adjudication. And Ted, this will be important to you because it addresses some of the more nuisance tickets, if you will, such as parking and garbage cans. And if we actually did do snow shoveling ordinance, I'm not saying we would, those would probably go to adjudication rather than clogging the branch court. So that is something we're looking into, and we'll have more information at the next several meetings. Also on September 16th, the clerk Kathy Metzler and I attended a legislative breakfast at the Condell Conference Center. We heard from Brad Schneider, Dan Duffy, Terry Link, talking about, I think, most of the problems we're already well aware of. I don't think we heard a lot of real solutions, but some good discussion, and that they're working on it. We did have opportunity to voice our opinions, and certainly we would like to see at the Illinois state level this pension issue resolved. So we hope to see that this fall session. And then finally, Groot, the public hearing started yesterday at the Round Lake Beach Civic Center for the application of the waste site transfer station. Heard opening statements. We have information in the back, and there's extra copies. We've had this posted, but there's a nice handout there that I had post because it shows you the date and times where public comments can be issued. So if you're not able to attend the public hearings every day, or you're not there when there's an item being discussed that's near and dear to you for whatever reason, you can still come and make public comments on whatever issue you want regarding this topic at the public comment time. The hearing officer also announced that at the close of the hearings, there will be ample time, again, for everybody to come back and make their public comments. It's my understanding that tomorrow at noon, the traffic topic will be discussed. So that will be presented by your experts. We already have somebody there with Grayslake giving some testimony. And based on what I hear at public comment, I'm sure I will have some added comments as well. So we will discuss that further as we get to that item under business. Is there any announcements from the clerk or standing committees?
I do have an announcement.
Okay. Just at the end of the meeting, we have envelopes that need to go to all the trustees, so make sure you see the clerk or I before you leave.
Okay, we had filed a challenge for the 2010 decennial census count, and we received the letter back from the Census Bureau yesterday, and our new official count as of August 27th is 3,688. So our population went up by 91 people. The housing count went up 30 houses. The new total is 1312 versus 1282. So I asked Kelly today what the state shared municipal revenue per person was, and it's broken down as the following. It's $135 per person per month. For the general fund, there's two line items. Income tax, which is $95.40 per person, and the state use tax, which is $16.70 per person, and that's a month. Then that's the general fund. amount. And then the motor fuel tax is $23.50 per person. So if you take all of that times 91 a month, that would be $12,339 more a month. So I called the census today to see when we would start getting that money, and they said that I would have to talk to the department that handles the taxes. So I did not go further because I did not know who to call. I mean,
And we'll pursue that.
yeah, tomorrow.
And of course, it all depends on whether or not the state pays their share.
Right.
Not that there's any doubt.
Is that like
So-
retroactive? Does that go back?
I don't think so.
I think it should,
I think it's good.
but whether the state will do that, we'll have to see.
Yeah, so that's all I have, thank you.
I have a couple of announcements.
Okay.
I just want to remind the trustees that Best is having its fundraising chili supper on Monday, the 7th of October, from 5 to 7:30 at the Round Lake Beach Cultural Center. And there will be music programs from all of the Round Lake District's 116 schools. And all of the items for dinner are $1 each, a hot dog, chili, or cookies, whatever. So they would like to have leaders of the community attend. So consider the invitation given. Just on a personal note, I will be talking about the Round Lake High School tutoring program on WRLR, which is 98.3 FM, Thursday, the 26th, from 4 to 5. Not the whole hour, but sometime between 4 and 5. So if anybody can get that.
So we'll
radio,
tune in.
Tune in, but I can't even get it on my radio, it's all static, but maybe somebody can hear it.
I was listening to it this morning when I was driving up to the hearings.
One thing, Public Safety Committee meetings has changed from the fourth Tuesday of the month to the second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock. We changed the dates to keep it kind of warm with what we've been doing through the summer, so we're doing very well.
Okay.
I've got a couple announcements. One, Kelly wants me to mention,
Microphone.
it's right there,
Well, you're not using it,
Is
so
it
you're
out?
not using it.
that, I lost my train of thought, here we go, the audit will be presented to the board probably at the October
Who is
meeting.
Kelly?
Oh, Kelly is our
That's what
treasurer.
he's not referring to Kelly.
Kelly is our treasurer.
Thank you. I'm looking at all the names.
Yeah.
I don't see a Kelly.
Kelly's usually there.
Okay.
It has taken longer than normal, and so when Kelly contacted Wolf and Company this past couple of weeks, we had aligned that they were rearranging some of their internal processes and things got slower. So we gave them anyway, and we'll have it probably, or at the first board meeting of October. Second announcement is, yesterday, I met with Greg Room, Jeff, and Kelly to discuss a process, starting a process within our village to help us not control, but have a better handle on engineering costs prior to initiating projects. There are essentially two different types of projects we've been dealing with, and they're either scheduled, they're on the budget, they're in the budget, they're ready to go, we know them, and they're long-term. And then we have these pop-up ones, or unscheduled.
Surprises.
Yeah, surprises. For example, yesterday, after my meeting with Jeff and Greg, they had to go over and take a look at a particular residence who was developing a sinkhole. So Greg had come out and they were going to formulate a plan to proceed with that. Now, in the past, that sort of billing, we'd get the bill, but the project would start and then all of a sudden, on our bill sheet, we'd have X amount. What's going to happen now is Greg will submit an estimate of cost to Jeff on those planned scheduled projects. Jeff will get it to the mayor, and the mayor will sign off on it. So we'll know up front, for the most part, what the cost will be. So it won't be a surprise. And the second thing we learned from Greg, and I appreciate him offering this, was that a number of municipalities that they work with actually have developed a fund or a line item for those unplanned expenses. He's gonna gather information on our last 3 fiscal years of our unplanned or surprise expenditures. And then we'll look at it and see if we can figure out what sort of dollar figure is set aside on an annual basis to cover these things so they can be budgeted for and we don't have to deplete our savings necessarily.
I don't think for the most part we have though. I mean, we do put
Well,
a buffer.
Well, we have a reserve account in streets and general fund and public works. I feel better if we had, if we actually had a set aside. for
No,
that.
I agree, but I'm just saying, I don't think we've had, I just want the public to be clear, is I don't think we really had to go and say we're gonna go dip into savings because we had a,
All right, but bad choice of words on my.
that's what I just want the public to be clear on.
And another example of that was on the water tower where we had the engineering expenses, but all of a sudden we find out we don't have a ladder.
Yeah.
Oops, that has to be paid for, an internal ladder.
Yeah,
So-
you're gonna confuse the hell out of
So it's just, it's just an internal process to tighten up our knowledge and our control of some expenditures.
Sounds good.
You're not gonna have it be, not to exceed, you're just gonna get an estimate.
We talked,
no, I suppose.
yeah, we talked about not to exceed, and we're gonna start out without that,
Okay.
and we'll see how it proceeds.
Well, yeah, because typically, I mean, on some of that, I mean, maybe it's been more informally, particularly on surprises, but Jeff and I, we might get a call from Greg, and I'll say, okay, Greg, is this really, we're not gonna go over a certain amount here, or you need to send up a red flag here. So this is just gonna be making it more formal on paper,
Yes.
that we have a ballpark figure, and if, as soon as he feels that he's going to exceed that ballpark figure because something else has come to light, I'm guessing, that we weren't aware of, then he should be coming back to us. It's not that it's not to exceed, right? It would be coming back to us.
Yeah, he'll check that. And the impression I got from Greg is that he's glad that we're gonna do this. Because sometimes he feels less uncomfortable sitting here and giving us a report or calling and saying, oh, yeah, this cost $25,000 or $10,000. So he was very helpful, and he seemed pleased that we're taking this route.
All right, good.
That's all I have.
All right, any other reports? All right, let's move on to business. Groot, as I stated, the public hearing started yesterday at noon. Kevin did attend today, and tomorrow is going to be the first meet, if you will, that I think is really of concern in Hainesville. At noon time at the opening, it's my understanding they will start on the traffic presentation. So Groot's experts will be presenting their traffic study and how they feel the traffic will impact the area. We have an expert from HDR that's been hired by Grace Lake and Hainesville that will give some counter testimony, and depending on what's presented, additional comment. I do want to share some talking points for the benefit of the public to give you some insight of what's going on and what our concerns are, and those have been passed out to the board. Illinois Route 120 and Porter in Round Lake Park is where the trucks are going to go in and out of. That's a short way down the road from Hainesville. It is, what, a half mile, less than a half mile past the Hainesville border. So let's talk about 120, which is a 2-lane principal arterial road that has a maximum hourly volume of 2,050 vehicles per hour. The current peak hour volume on 120 is 2,448 vehicles per hour. So obviously these numbers indicate that we are well over capacity at this time. The Lake Transfer Station projects to add 170 truck trips daily to Route 120. Adding vehicles in the form of large trucks from the transfer station obviously will take us further over capacity, creating worse traffic delays, et cetera, et cetera. Hainesville Road. Hainesville Road, first of all, its land use is adjacent to primarily residential area. And based on the current high volume of traffic, it's being used as a regional route. Hainesville Road is a 2-lane minor arterial roadway that has a maximum hourly volume of 1,050 vehicles per hour. The current peak hourly volume is 1,052. So we're there. The Lake Transfer Station projects to add 38 truck trips daily onto Hainesville Road. Adding vehicles again in the form of large trucks from the transfer station indicates that we will be well over capacity and creating further traffic delays. Our current vehicle delays on Hainesville Road are due already to the excessive volume on Route 120. We can sit here in the Village Hall and at certain times of the day see all the traffic back up. Now let's talk about the intersection itself at Hainesville Road and 120. The current peak hourly volume of traffic at the intersection is well over capacity. Combine those two numbers, we're adding 208 truck tips daily to that intersection. And I think we all can imagine, we know what time is involved in a large truck making a turn at an intersection. So, obviously, this has our attention. I encourage the public and everyone to attend the public hearings if you can. If you can't, consider talking to your neighbors. We will be attending. If you have questions, please feel free to call me. I'll keep you informed and I'll be reporting at the board meetings. Kevin and I will be meeting and sharing information and discussing some things, and any other trustees or staff that are able to attend the meeting at any time. And again, let me stress, there are times posted where you can make public comments, and even if you're not there on the day that they discuss traffic, you can show up on any of those days of public comment and express your concern about traffic.
I just make a comment. When I was at some meeting,
Your microphone's not picking up.
when I was at some meeting involving Groot, they were saying that they were trying to limit their traffic to off-peak hours. And yet, the other day, I was going north on Allegheny, and there was a Groot truck about to turn onto 120 going west, and it was nearly 5 o'clock. So they're not adhering to the off-peak hours either.
Well, and I don't know what we'll hear tomorrow, but I will tell you what I heard in opening statements yesterday that concerned me. Now, Groot has several operations there already. We're just talking right now about the proposed, waste site transfer station. They're talking about hours of operation will be 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and on Saturday, 4 a.m. to noon. So that tells me you're going to be in the road or on the road during peak travel hours. My other concern is if the trucks show up and get loaded and they don't want to leave because it's peak rush hour, there are stacking spaces that they can pull into, and Wally, you've pointed this out, and it's a very good point. I counted on the presentation that they, on this PowerPoint, I think 16 spaces. I could be off by 1 or 2, but I want to say I counted 16 spaces that a trailer could pull into. So my concern is, you have these trailers stacking up till maybe, okay, you're not going to pull out at 5 or 6, but are they going to pull out at 7, 7:30? And we have this state-of-the-art facility, this building that this truck pulls into, and the waste is loaded, and then it is tarped. But if it does not leave the area immediately, and now it's parked outside in a parking space, ultimately, where it's stacked, is what they call it, and it's a hot day in July, and you got 8 trucks stacked, how does the odor not start to leave the area? So,
That's a lot of garbage.
And one of the things that they threw out today also is that they also looked at possibly running that facility 24/7. And several of the attorneys from the surrounding communities were questioning, well, doesn't noise travel in the evening just like it does in the daytime? Whereas you will start hearing more of this going on with them loading the trucks and the trucks leaving the facility. My biggest concern is the volume of truck traffic coming through Hainesville to go to the transfer facility, which is just the tandem axle route trucks. But I want to know how they're going to route the loaded semis out of there to the landfill. And those are some of the questions that, I've been paying attention to, and hopefully we'll get some answers tomorrow. They say they're going to turn right and head west out on 120 towards 59, but, I have no idea where these landfills, where they're going to. They haven't shared what landfills they're going to be using to tip these trucks once they load them. So it was an interesting day today, sitting there listening to that this afternoon.
Linda,
yes.
who is the final decision-making body?
Well, the hearing, as I understand it, is a two-tiered process, because they have to show that they have met all the criteria laid out in the state statute by the IEPA. So, traffic study, property value impact, facility addressing odors and all those types. So there's all this criteria they have to meet. And so they have experts who present and give testimony, and that they've shown that they've done their due diligence, and this is why they're certain that this will work beautifully. And then there are tables also present of experts who will give counter testimony. For example, Hainesville and Grays Lake hiring someone to discuss the traffic issue. But also at this hearing is actually the board of Round Lake Park. This is located in the village of Round Lake Park. Round Lake Park wants to enter into an agreement with Groot to have this facility. Although, as they go through the process, Round Lake Park can decide whether they've met all the benchmarks or not. They could hear something that disturbs them and says, no, we don't want this project. Or they could hear something that says, well, we would like this project, but we have heard some very valid points regarding traffic. And so therefore, we want to see an effort made, whatever effort that would be, that they would come up with, that you need to address, whether you only operate these hours or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So, this is not a done deal. It's not a done deal as far as the IEPA, and it's not a done deal yet with the Round Lake Park Village Board.
Does Swelco have some say, besides them meeting all the benchmarks?
Well, Swelco is there. Walter Willis, the director of Swelco, which Swelco is the solid waste agency of Lake County, which we are a member of. And Walter Willis, our director, is one of the experts who's sitting on the other side to give testimony on what would best serve all the villages as members of Swelco.
Because one of the things, it seemed to me when we visited the transfer station in Mount Prospect or Des Plaines, wherever.
They said it's Glenview, but
But it's not.
Plains.
Yes,
It's
Des Plaines. I got the impression that it doesn't run 24/7 or anything like that.
No, that one does not run
Or
24/7.
anything like the hours that you're quoting, and I would think that they could ask for the moon and settle for half if someone makes a squawk and say, those hours are absurd, you have to do it within.
Yeah, and now, keep in mind, I did not hear 24/7, but Kevin was there today, and he may have heard that. What I heard during opening statements was, like I said, and maybe they're talking about leaving it open to go to 24/7 later.
Well, that could be a possibility also, and they said that it could go, business volume could double through that facility from 750 tons to double that over X amount of time. So that's why they're trying to, nail down as many contingencies as possible early on, so that everybody gets a decent overview of how far this thing can grow once it starts.
The one thing I've heard from different parties is that site transfer stations, a lot of them, or larger ones, operate at moving 3,000 tons per day. This one is projected to move 750 tons per day, which still is an awful lot of garbage, but is actually a smaller scale. And the question, like Kevin said, was, well, ultimately they may double, which would still only take them to 1,500, which would still then be a medium size, if you will. Just to put it in perspective of how they view the world, this is not a big deal, because it's only 750 tons, you know. And you know, if it was located in an area that had access to more arterial roads, then that may very well be. But when you look at this traffic impact, it's pretty scary stuff.
Back to my question though. If they pass IEPA's checklist,
Yeah.
the final decision is Round Lake Park.
Yes.
So if we really want to make an impression on somebody, we need to communicate with their board.
Well, you're communicating with their board through this,
hearings,
through the hearing. We cannot, in fact, I would have loved to have been able to pick up the phone in the last couple of weeks, the more I study this traffic, and be able to talk to Mayor Lucasen around Lake Park. I cannot do that. Her answer would be, I cannot discuss any of this with you. We are in the formal public hearing time. So the only way we can have our opinion heard is through our expert testimony and myself making comments during the public comment time. Now, as things move forward, let's see what happens tomorrow. And as I said earlier, I may come back to the board and we have to decide if we want to take any other action.
Because go ahead, I'm sorry.
Whether we want to send somebody else to our panel, whether it would be our attorney or anybody else to represent the village.
But we still have the option to attend a Round Lake Park board meeting and issue public comments there during their public comment, if we so choose, as individuals. Because it's a public board meeting.
You can make a comment, but they can't discuss it there.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah. I think, you know, certainly you could do that and it wouldn't hurt. I think you're gonna get more bang for the buck by going to the public hearing and make a
Well, I
public
understand.
comment.
It's one of those things that could be done sometime, but not yet.
Right.
Mayor, is there a process in part if they want to increase their capacity there? Do they have to go back and rehab another hearing and ask the community whether it's feasible or whether they can do it or not? Or is it just?
It's my understanding that they're asking for a maximum volume, and if they ever wanted to increase it at a later time, they would have to go through a new permitting process. So they're gonna get a cap. Yeah.
So they're going to get the cap right now and then later on if they want to expand.
Yeah, like they're certainly not gonna be getting any 3,000 ton per day approval, and they're not seeking that. Yeah.
750, and that's where the permits.
I think it might be higher than 750, but what they're saying that for now, or the first few years, they'll be doing, yes, is 750. Yeah, and whether it's 1,200 or 1,500, I'm not clear on that.
Okay. How big, I didn't see the plans on the building, but how big is the building versus the one in Glenview? I mean, is it?
I want to say it's slightly bigger, but I don't know.
I didn't see dimensions, Wally, so I couldn't tell you, and I didn't see the Glenview facility. I mean, I've driven past it, but
The reason I'm saying is there was so much building there, and so much air, purifications or whatever, makeup units and stuff like that. They could store all these ready-to-go semis inside the building until they're ready to go. Not have outside stacking areas.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I was talking to all the Willis at over there was, could you have, say, hey, you're gonna stack 4 of them in here and leave them there. And, you can leave them there as long as you want, because now you're still within containment.
And that still gave room for the other garbage trucks, the small, to come in?
Yeah, there was plenty,
Okay.
there was probably, you could probably kept maybe 10 semis.
the only thing is, though, is that what you're gonna do with the driver when he's inside the facility and they're loading the other trucks now, that's gonna be a safety issue for the driver or they're gonna have to put a driver area or
Right,
section.
just designate an area of,
Designated area.
drop it here, you pick it up here and go.
No, I understand that, but that's, I think, I mean, I like the idea of sticking the truck inside, but then what are you gonna do with the driver? You can't have the drivers out wandering around the transfer facility. There's a good possibility, I mean, anybody can get hurt.
What I will do is I will send Walter a text or an email
Okay.
so that when I get there tomorrow, that maybe we can talk about that on the side
I
and
wish,
I'll see what he
I
says.
wish I
Yeah.
could, because I know, I talked extensively with that.
Well, again, remember, this is just the
Yeah,
beginning.
right,
We
right.
have, you can see how many dates there are for the hearing.
Right.
And it's only 1,000-page permit. I mean, they killed 6 forests to just print this thing for the people there today. I mean, literally, the books were that thick. And everybody had a copy. On the copy franchise for that.
Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns at this time? Okay, let's move on to the ever-popular residential snow shoveling ordinance feasibility discussion. We didn't get as much feedback as we hoped, formally anyway. What happens to me, especially since we're in a small town, and I think it happens to some of you trustees, when I'm out walking my dog, I'm out working in my yard, I have residents that will stop and say hello, and then they'll tell me what they think about something, which is good, and I want communication. But when it comes to topics where they want the board to take action or consider something, I do ask them to please, I understand you can't always come to board meetings, could you please send an email, could you write a letter, could you have something, so we have a formal statement, because it gets very old, and it's hard for the general public to believe, and I've been out there on that side, to say, well, the mayor said, or trustee so-and-so said that, you know, X amount of people stopped by or talked to her about A, B, and C. So that has been frustrating. However, I will say, what has changed over the years